Welcome to this session as I show you how I make these gorgeous paper flowers that I use quite frequently on many of my scrapbook layouts. They're all hand cut, inked, use scrap paper, and this is pretty much where I start. I start with a pattern for these paper flowers. You'll want 4 to 5 layers of varying sizes, a little stash of scrap papers. I like to mix and match my patterns, and double-sided paper is just great to make these out of. So I just start by using my detail scissors and cutting around each flower layer. You don't have to cut them out precisely at this step. We'll do that later when we lay them on the paper. So for now, I'm just cutting them out. Grab whichever layer you want to use and a scrap of paper that will fit those petals. So I usually, for some reason, always start with the largest layer and my largest scrap. And I'm just going to hold that over there. Depending on the thickness of your paper, you can usually cut 2 to 4 layers at a time. This is a thick cardstock type paper, and so I've only doubled it over because with the detail scissors, it would be a little hard to cut any more than the 2 layers here. The detailed scissors make it very, very easy to cut intricate shapes like these. The blades are really sharp. They have a precision tip, which means that when your tips come together, you're not going to get that little nick at the end of the cut. You'll get a nice, straight, clean slice. So you just go around each of the patterns. Sometimes I'll cut all in one direction and then backtrack and do the other one. It just depends on which is easiest for you. I don't know about you, but I just love making my own embellishments for my scrapbook layouts. So here I've finished with the first layer. So I've got 2 petals, double-sided paper, and I like to use pattern paper because I like all the varying patterns and the colors that you get with that. So again, now I'm going to go with the next layer, another scrap piece of pattern paper, folded it over so I can get 2 petals out of this section. And then again, we're just using a detail scissors, cutting around all the petals. I don't even adhere this or attach it. I just sort of hold it up there and it stays good enough. So we've got all of these flower layers cut. So what I like to do next is take a little piece of paper towel or a cloth, lay the petals out on it, and just using some plain water in a fine mister bottle, I like to mist them lightly. It makes the paper more pliable, and you can scrunch it, crease it, fold it, and then let it dry most of the way pretty naturally, and it tends to hold its shape. The water, as it dries too in the paper, it makes the flowers a little crinkly sounding. I just like the feel and the look. And this is thick paper, so the spritzing with the water really, really makes it easier to scrunch these up and make them look a little bit more real. So I do that with every single layer of the flower petals, and I've got enough petals cut here, enough petals and layers cut for 2 separate flowers. So they've all been spritzed now and scrunched up. I like to just pinch them. I pinch the petals together. You can take and scrunch them together. Be gentle so you don't rip the petals off, but actually they'll take quite a bit of abuse. So if they're not quite dry by the time you get to the end of that, I just simply use my little heat tool, give them a quick little dry. They don't have to be totally dry, but you don't want them really wet either. So now I'm going to ink up my edges. In here I'm using the Ranger's Distress Ink in Vintage Photo. So I have my little piece of nonstick craft sheet down there that I can work on. And I'm just going to go around and ink every single petal edge on every single layer. It really is going to add a special touch when they're done. So I'm using the Ranger ink applicator with a foam ink pad on there. And then I'm using, like I said, the Vintage Photo color in the Ranger Distress ink. So there you'll see I have every layer inked. And now I just layer them up. I start large and go to the smallest. And these flowers, I think, have 5 layers on them. So you can make flowers with just 3 layers. You can omit or add as many as you like. Once I get them all layered up, I lay them over a pushy pad, which is an old mouse pad that I cut up, and I use a push pin. And I just stab it right through the center. And then I insert a brad. And that's going to hold all of my layers together. Spread the prongs. And there we have the flower assembled. You don't need to worry about assembly and where the petals are laying when you're just stacking it up, because once the brad is in there, you'll be able to twist those layers around and get them just how you like them. And look at there. It's really quite easy. It's a little bit of time, but I like that it takes the time to make you slow down. What I like to do to finish these is I put a light coating of glaze on them. In this instance, I'm going to use the Tim Holtz Collage medium, but you could use a matte medium, a glossy medium, a decoupage medium. I like to just use my finger, and I just sort of slide it across each of the petals. It's a little tricky because you have to go in and like sort of dig underneath each of the layers to get it in there. But what this does is it makes the flower, again, a little crunchy, and you'll find that the Distress ink will wick out a little bit and give you some nice soft edges where you've inked. And it just makes the flower really stable and a little bit thicker. The trick to this is to keep going back and working your flowers as they dry, because the weight of the adhesive and water on those, the petals will just naturally fall down flat into each other and they'll dry together. So you want to just keep going around and pinching the petals upward as it dries. It really doesn't take long because you're just putting a thin coat of the glazing medium on there. And like I said, it can be glazing medium, it can be decoupage, collage medium I'm using here from Ranger, the Tim Holtz Collage medium. You could add a little bit of coloring to your medium if you wanted. I like a glossy medium some of the times because it really brings out the colors in your paper. But for this instance, I'm using the matte medium. And you can see I just keep going around and working those petals in the upward position so they don't dry and stick together. You can just go around and keep pinching. As it dries, it'll just naturally hold its shape. So pretty. And then same thing for the second one. And again, you just want to make sure that you're going around and pinching those petals up so they dry upright and not stuck to each other. That's going to give you a lot of texture and dimension on your page. These are great for a canvas as well. And there you have it. I think you can see how the medium has made the ink wick out softly. And this is what they look like on the page. You can either glue them on the page or just stick the prongs of the brad through.